There is a kind of man who walks into a room and everything shifts. Nobody announces him, nobody introduces him, but every pair of eyes adjusts. Every conversation lowers its volume by 1 degree. He hasn't said a word, and he already owns the space. You want to know what that is? That is not charm. That is not luck. That is not genetics. That is engineered respect, the kind Machiavelli wrote about in Candlelight while kingdoms burned around him. The kind most men will never earn because they are too busy chasing love from people who haven't even learned to respect themselves. Today, I am going to hand you 7 things that make a man untouchable. Not liked, not popular, untouchable. And if you stay until the end, you will never see power, respect, or yourself the same way again. Let us begin. Number 1, controlled silence. The first thing every single person respects in a man is his ability to stay silent when everyone else is desperate to speak. Understand something. The world is drowning in noise. Everybody has an opinion, everybody wants to react, everybody wants to prove they are the smartest person in the room. And that is exactly why they never will be. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He watched kings fall not because they lacked power, but because they could not keep their mouths shut. A man who speaks too much reveals his strategy. A man who reacts too fast reveals his weakness. But a man who sits in silence while chaos unfolds around him, that man terrifies everyone in the room because nobody knows what he is thinking, and what people cannot read, they cannot control. Let that sink in. Your silence is not passive. It is a weapon. When someone insults you and you say nothing, you are not being weak. You are showing them that their words do not have access to your inner world. When someone tries to provoke you in front of others and you simply look at them with calm, dead eyes and say nothing, you have already won. You did not just win the argument, you won their mind. They will go home and replay that moment over and over again, wondering what you were thinking, wondering what you are capable of. That is power. That is Machiavellian silence. Most men talk because they are afraid of being invisible, but the man who controls his silence becomes the most visible person in any room, not because he demands attention, but because he does not need it. Starting today, speak less, observe more. Let other men fill the air with empty words. You are building something they cannot see yet, and by the time they realize it, it will already be too late. Number 2, unshakable composure. The second thing every person respects in a man is composure that does not crack no matter what hits him. Listen to me carefully. Life is going to test you, not once, not twice. Every single day, something or someone will try to pull a reaction out of you. An insult, a betrayal, a failure that hits you so hard you can feel it in your chest. And in that exact moment, the entire world is watching to see what you do next. Machiavelli wrote that men judge you far more by your eyes and your composure than by your words. He was right, because words can be rehearsed but composure cannot be faked. When a man loses his temper, he does not look powerful. He looks desperate. He looks like a man who has lost control of the only kingdom that ever mattered, which is himself. But the man who receives terrible news and his face does not change. The man who gets disrespected publicly and his heartbeat stays the same. That man is operating on a level most people will never reach, and everyone around him can feel it. They may not understand it, but they feel it in their bones. That is what cold power looks like. It is not about suppressing your emotions. It is about mastering them so completely that you choose when they surface and when they stay buried. Anger is useful, but only when deployed with precision. Sadness is real, but it is never meant to be a performance. You feel everything. You show almost nothing. That is the difference between a man who commands respect and a man who begs for sympathy. The storms of your life are nobody else's entertainment. Let them rage on the inside. On the outside, you are granite. You are ice. You are the man nobody can rattle. And that is why they will never forget you. Number 3. Strategic independence. The third thing every person respects in a man is his ability to stand completely alone without crumbling. Most men are addicted to approval. They dress for validation. They speak for applause. They make decisions based on what will make other people comfortable. And that is exactly why most men are forgettable. Machiavelli saw this pattern in every court he ever entered. The men who needed allies more than they needed principles were always the first to be destroyed. Because when you depend on someone for your sense of worth, you have handed them a leash and called it love. Strategic independence is not about isolating yourself from the world. It is about making sure the world can never use your loneliness against you. There is a brutal difference between being alone and being dependent. A dependent man changes his opinions when the room changes. He laughs at jokes that are not funny because the right people are watching. He abandons his own plans the moment someone offers him a seat at their table. But an independent man builds his own table. He does not wait for invitations. He does not adjust his spine to fit into rooms that were never built for him. He walks away from circles that require him to shrink. And that is what terrifies people. Not the man who fights for a place in the crowd, but the man who does not need the crowd at all. When you stop needing people to validate your direction, you become impossible to manipulate. Nobody can threaten you with abandonment because you already know how to walk alone in the dark and still keep moving. Nobody can bribe you with inclusion because your peace is not for sale. Machiavelli knew that the most dangerous man in any kingdom was not the one with the biggest army. It was the one who could lose everything and still rebuild from nothing without asking a single soul for permission. That is the man people respect, not because he is cold, but because he is free. And freedom in a world full of desperate men is the most intimidating thing you can ever carry. Learn to need less. Watch how much more comes to you. Number 4, brutal self-discipline. The fourth thing every person respects in a man is discipline so brutal it looks almost inhuman. Let me tell you something most people will never accept. Talent is common, intelligence is common, ambition is everywhere. But discipline is the rarest force on this planet. It is the thing that separates the man who talks about greatness from the man who actually becomes great. Machiavelli did not admire dreamers. He studied executors, the men who woke up before the world and sharpened their swords while others were still debating which sword to buy. That is the difference. Discipline is not motivation. Motivation is a feeling. It comes and goes like weather. Discipline is a decision that you make once and then defend with your life every single morning after. It is waking up when your body begs you to stay down. It is training when nobody is watching. It is saying no to distractions that feel good in the moment, but cost you everything in the long run. The disciplined man does not need someone to hold him accountable. He holds himself accountable because he understands something most men never will. Every single day, you are either building the life you want or you are funding the life you are going to regret. There is no neutral ground. There is no pause button. Every hour you waste is an hour your enemy is using to get ahead of you. And make no mistake, you do have enemies. Not always people. Sometimes your greatest enemy is your own comfort, your own laziness, whispering that you have done enough, that you deserve a break, that tomorrow is a better day to start. That voice has destroyed more men than any war ever could. The man who masters discipline does not just earn respect, he earns fear. Because when people watch someone operate with relentless consistency day after day, month after month, they realize they are looking at someone who cannot be outworked and therefore cannot be beaten. That is the energy you need to carry. Not loud, not flashy, just relentless. Machiavelli once observed that the man who conquers himself has already conquered half the world before his enemies even wake up. So stop negotiating with your weakness. Stop giving yourself permission to be average. The world does not respect potential. The world respects proof, and proof is built in silence through discipline that never takes a day off. Become the man who does not need to be pushed. That man is already unstoppable. Number 5, calculated generosity. The fifth thing every person respects in a man is generosity that is calculated and never foolish. Now listen closely, because this is where most men destroy themselves. They think being generous means giving everything to everyone without thinking. They hand out their time like it is free. They give their money to people who never remember the favor. They pour their energy into relationships that drain them dry and call it loyalty. That is not generosity. That is self-destruction with a noble name. Machiavelli warned about this very thing. He wrote that a man who is generous without strategy will eventually exhaust every resource he has and be forced to become desperate. And a desperate man is a man nobody respects. Calculated generosity means you give with intention. You help people who have proven they are worth helping. You invest your time in those who would do the same for you if the tables were turned. You do not give to impress. You do not give to be liked. You give because it serves a purpose that aligns with your values and your vision. There is a brutal truth hidden inside every act of kindness. When you give too freely, people do not respect you more. They respect you less. They start to expect it. They start to feel entitled to it. And the moment you stop giving, they do not thank you for everything you did. They resent you for the one time you said no. That is human nature. Machiavelli did not write about the world as he wished it was. He wrote about the world as it truly is. And in this world, kindness without boundaries is an invitation for exploitation. The powerful man gives strategically. He remembers every favor, not to hold it over someone, but to understand the map of loyalty around him. He knows who showed up when things were dark. He knows who disappeared. And he moves accordingly in silence. His generosity is a tool, not a weakness. When he gives, it means something because it is rare and it is earned. People feel the weight of his kindness because they know it was not handed out cheaply. Stop being the man who gives everything and receives nothing. Stop confusing being used with being needed. The world does not reward the man who empties himself for others. It rewards the man who knows his worth and distributes his value like a king distributes land, with precision, with purpose, and only to those who have earned the right to stand on it. Guard your generosity like you guard your crown. It is one of the most powerful things you own. Number 6. Fearless accountability. The sixth thing every person respects in a man is his ability to own everything that happens in his life without flinching, without excuses, without pointing fingers at the world like a child who lost a game he was never prepared to play. Most men are professional victims. They blame their childhood. They blame the economy. They blame their parents. They blame the government. They blame the woman who left. They blame the friend who betrayed them. And while they are busy building a museum of excuses, the world quietly moves on without them. Nobody is coming back to check on the man who could not stop complaining. Nobody is saving a seat for the man who refuses to save himself. Machiavelli observed this pattern in every fallen leader he ever studied. The moment a ruler started blaming fate for his failures was the exact moment his empire began to collapse. Because blame is a confession. When you blame someone else for your situation, you are publicly admitting that someone else has more control over your life than you do. And the moment people believe that they will never follow you, they will never respect you, they will pity you. And pity is the most humiliating currency a man can receive. Fearless accountability means you look at your failures, your losses, your betrayals, and you say, I allowed this to happen. Not because you deserve the pain, but because somewhere along the way, you ignored a sign you should have read. You trusted someone you should have studied longer. You stayed comfortable when you should have been preparing for war. That is not self-blame. That is power. Because the moment you take full ownership of everything in your life, you take back full control. You stop being a passenger. You become the architect. The man who says this happened because of me is the same man who can say, and I will make sure it never happens again. That is a man people follow into battle. That is a man who does not need sympathy because he is too busy building solutions. The weak man tells the story of what happened to him. The powerful man tells the story of what he did about it. There is a silence that follows a man who owns his failures openly. It is not the silence of judgment. It is the silence of respect, because everyone in the room knows they could never do the same. They are too afraid to look at their own reflection that honestly. They would rather lie to themselves for the rest of their lives than face one uncomfortable truth for 5 minutes. Do not be that man. Be the man who stands in front of his own wreckage and says, I built this and I will rebuild it better. That energy is magnetic. That energy is rare. That energy is what separates kings from cowards. Own your life, every scar, every mistake, every fall, because the man who owns it all is the only man who can change it all. Number 7, quiet dominance. The 7th and final thing every person respects in a man is quiet dominance. Not the loud, theatrical kind that needs applause to survive. Not the aggressive kind that beats its chest and demands attention like a wounded animal. I am talking about something far more dangerous. I am talking about the kind of dominance that never raises its voice. The kind that does not need to announce itself because every person in the room already feels it the moment you walk in. It is not in what you say. It is in what you carry. It sits in the way you hold your posture when the world is trying to bend you. It lives in your eyes when someone tries to test you and you do not even blink. It breathes through the pauses in your speech, through the way you let silence do the work that weak men try to do with words. Quiet dominance is the final form. It is what happens when a man has mastered every trait that came before it. The silence, the composure, the independence, the discipline, the calculated generosity, the fearless accountability. When all 6 of those forces merge inside one man, something shifts in the atmosphere around him. He does not need to compete because competition already feels pointless to anyone standing next to him. He does not need to prove anything because his life is the proof. Machiavelli spent decades studying rulers, generals, and strategists. He watched empires rise and kingdoms fall. And the one pattern he found among every man who held lasting power was this. They did not chase dominance. They became it. They did not demand respect through fear or force. They earned it through a presence so heavy it bent the energy of every room they entered. That is not something you can fake. You cannot perform quiet dominance. You can only build it, brick by brick, loss by loss, scar by scar. It is forged in the nights when no one is watching and you are still putting in the work. It is tempered in the moments when life takes everything from you and you do not collapse. You do not complain, you do not post about it. You go silent, you recalibrate, and you come back so sharp that the people who doubted you cannot even make eye contact anymore. That is power, not the kind they give you, the kind they cannot take away. The world right now is overflowing with noise. Everyone is performing. Everyone is pretending to be strong while crumbling behind closed doors. Everyone is desperate to look powerful without doing the work that actual power requires. And that is exactly why the man who moves in silence will always dominate the man who moves in noise. You are not here to perform. You are here to become. And if you have made it to this very moment, if you have absorbed every single word from the beginning of this video until now, then something inside you has already changed. You are not the same man you were when you clicked on this. The man who stays when the world is full of distractions. The man who sharpens his mind while others are numbing theirs. That man is already ahead of 90% of the people around him. You just have not seen the results yet, but you will. Machiavelli once wrote that the man who prepares in silence always shocks the world when he finally moves. That is your story now. So here is what I need you to do. Go to the comments section right now and type these words. I am the storm they never saw coming. Claim it. Let it echo in your mind until it becomes the truth you walk with every single day. Because what you speak into existence has a way of building itself around you. And if this video lit something inside your chest today, if it made you sit up straighter, if it made you rethink the man you have been settling for being, then do me a favor, hit that like button so this reaches another man who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel because this is not the last time you will need these words, and turn on notifications so the next time I release something like this, you are the first to know. This is not motivation. This is not entertainment. This is a blueprint for the man the world is not ready for. And that man is you. Now stand up, walk out that door, and let them feel you before they ever hear you. The game just changed, and you are the reason why.